We often talk about God, but almost always through religion, through names, symbols, scriptures, and traditions. Yet before all of that existed, there should be a far more fundamental question. Does the concept of God itself make logical sense? Because if the concept of God collapses at the level of reason, then any faith built upon it becomes nothing more than an emotional belief, not a solid truth. Therefore, in this discussion, we deliberately set aside all religious labels, not to demean religion, but precisely to test whether the idea of God can withstand examination by human reason, philosophy, and intellectual honesty. Let's look at reality. The universe exists, energy exists, matter exists, yet none of them has to exist. The universe could have never come into being. It is contingent, dependent, not necessary. If all of reality consists only of things that could exist or not exist, then the question becomes simple yet devastating. Why does anything exist at all right now, rather than absolute nothingness? Logic rejects the answer by chance, because chance itself still requires something to already exist. From this point, reason demands a foundation that depends on nothing else. To explain why anything exists, we need something whose existence itself requires no further explanation. Something that does not arise from another cause, something that cannot not exist. This is what is called a necessary existence. Without it, the entire chain of cause and effect would regress endlessly, and explanation would never truly be complete. Necessary existence is not a conclusion of faith, but a demand of logic, so that reality does not become absurd. At this point, God cannot be understood as a super being, the most powerful entity, or the highest figure within the universe. God is not part of reality. Rather, reality depends on Him. He does not exist within space and time, because space and time are creations. God is not an object that can be observed, not a figure that can be seen. He is not something, among other things. But the reason why something exists at all, anything that changes implies that it was previously imperfect and then became more perfect, or the other way around. But God, if truly necessary, has no deficiency whatsoever. He does not learn, does not grow, does not develop. Change is a characteristic of limited beings. Immutability, on the contrary, is a mark of perfection. God does not move from one state to another. He is fully actual at every moment. Then an important question arises. Must God create the world? If God were obligated to create, then He would be bound by necessity, and anything that is bound is no longer absolute. Therefore, creation is not God's obligation, but a free choice. The world exists not because God needs it, not because God lacks anything, but because God wills it. Our existence is a realized possibility, not a forced necessity. Logically, God cannot be more than one. Two gods would imply difference, and difference implies limitation. One would possess something the other does not. Anything that is limited cannot be absolute. If there were two gods, then neither of them would be perfect. Therefore, the oneness of God is not a religious claim, but a logical conclusion drawn from the nature of absoluteness itself. God is not composed of parts. He does not possess attributes like created beings do. God's knowledge is not separate from His being. God's will is not an additional attribute. In God, existence, knowledge, and power are one. If God were made up of parts, then He would rely on those parts, and anything that relies on something else cannot be the source of all things. If God is one and simple, why is creation so diverse? Because difference does not come from God, but from the limitations of created beings. God gives existence in a single and complete way. Creatures receive it according to their capacity. Like white light, which is one, that appears as many colors when passing through a prism. The diversity of the world actually affirms the unity of its source. Anything that can be depicted has form. Anything that has form has limits, and anything that is limited is not God. Therefore, God cannot be sculpted, visualized, portrayed, or filmed. Any attempt to give God a form only reduces Him to a created being. The true God becomes ever more inconceivable, ever less representable by any symbol. If Jesus were God, then a contradiction arises. God cannot obey, because He is under no authority. God cannot suffer and cannot die. And if Jesus could not possibly sin because He is God, then his obedience loses its moral meaning. Obedience only has value if disobedience is truly possible. But if Jesus is understood as a chosen human sent by God, everything becomes coherent. He has free will, he can fail, he can choose not to obey. And precisely because of this, his obedience has value. His suffering is meaningful. His example is relevant to other humans. Throughout history, there have always been messengers who carried the same message. God is one, unlike any created being, and must not be equated with creation. They are not God, they are reminders. Their teachings may be wrapped in different cultures, but the essence remains the same. The conclusion is this: God is not a figure, not a symbol, not a character. He is the beginning and the end, the source of all things. And the more we try to depict him, the further we move away from his true essence. God does not need defense. Logic alone is enough to show that he exists.